encourage you to open your video up. No judgments on what you're wearing. Don't worry about it. Just do the neck up.
Mark. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday, everyone. It's so funny. Like, I don't even know what Friday. Everyone's like, oh, happy Friday. And I'm like, actually, Friday is like the day I start getting ramped up. And they're like, oh, Monday's here. We did all that planning for Monday. What is Friday anymore? Cool. Well, Tamara, if you could drop in the materials when you get a chance. So you see that's in there. Great. Thank you. And so we'll get kicked off here. Gary is still not feeling well. And so keep him in your prayers. Hopefully he'll be on the next one, but we're going to run this with just our market centers and kind of me as host today. And so Tamara is here too. But we're going to dive into the numbers today. We're going to talk about some stuff we're hearing out there in the markets. I'm curious to hear, what's happening in the mortgage world. I think things are happening fast in the mortgage world right now too. So I'm excited to hear about some of that stuff. And then, just overall. So let's kick it off. So what do you got that's going good in your world? What, tell me something good. Share something that's happening that you're excited about, some kind of aha, or what have you heard? Feel free to unmute yourself by either pressing the space bar to unmute or physically clicking unmute over there. What you got?
I learned about a killer home swap program called Knock that is opening up in the Tampa market that allows sellers to pull out a loan on their home and purchase a new home without having to sell their property right away. So it gives them a grace period of about 6 months to sell their property and put an offer in on a new property.
Yeah, awesome. Love that tool. Thanks, Derek, for sharing that. I know we've been seeing that coming at some of the team meetings and stuff like that. We just got Knox certified on our team to add that as another layer. It seemed like it's going to be a pretty good win for some sellers out there. Thanks for sharing. What else you got? Tell me something good. Unmute. You unmute by pressing space, just in case you're talking right now and you think I can't hear you. What you got?
Nick, I'll go ahead and share.
Hey, Kurt.
So we just went under contract with one of the agents here at KW in Palm Harbor on a bank statement loan. So he didn't show enough money on his tax returns, but did on the bank statements. Second home, 15% down. Purchase price was $750, and he qualifies as far as the bank statements go. So we're doing a bank statement loan for him.
That's awesome.
Good stuff.
That's great. Another tool. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Kurt. What else you guys got? Tell me something good. I'll tell you something good. My daughter's 4th birthday is tomorrow. I'm going to have like, 4-year-olds at the splash park. Good times. I don't know. Anyone else have a 4-year-old birthday coming up? I'll tell you how it goes. Cool. What else you got that's going good in your world? Go ahead and unmute yourself and share. Hey, Will.
Pretty cool. Piggybacking on the KW tools. We had a command lead come in through Facebook, met with her, went through her options, threw out Keller offers, went that route, closing next month. Easy as it could be.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're getting paid.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're getting paid, the full compensation, 3% on that. We're able to negotiate the offer up for her with the investors pooled by Keller offers. And yeah, that came in through command.
So that was a Facebook lead that you guys generated that came in through command?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Will. What else you got? What's going on in your world? What have you heard recently that jumps out at you? There's been a lot cooking out there. What have you heard? Spacebar unmutes. I'm sure y'all have heard something out there that you're excited about. What you got?
You have a quiet bunch today.
I know. This is a mastermind, folks. We are like the #1 market center in all of South, #1 group in all of South Florida region. I don't know if y'all saw that. Like Clearwater is, and then I mean we're all right up there. And this is one of the awesome tools that we have available for our agents and for ourselves. I mean, I love this mastermind, and I love learning, what's going on out there. And so I get as much out of this, and I'm sure you all do too. But it's a participation thing. So I highly suggest, showing turning on your camera if you're in that spot and share something good. We're gonna go something good for another 2 minutes. Let's hear 2 more something good, then we'll jump into the next item. What you got?
I just got an agent referral, and they're coming down this weekend from Texas, so buyers.
Cool.
And I just got my first agent referral that I sent out check today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Great job.
yeah. Commercial property expired on the phone. Said, listen, I got the guy for you. Let him, and all I did is pass it off.
That's great. Tell you what, on the commercial side, that's what we do. Just feed the commercial pipeline. For sure. Thanks for sharing that, Brian. One more. What else you got? What's going on good in your world? Tell me something good or some kind of aha you've had over the last 30 days or so since last time we spoke.
So Brian Forrester and I were the #5 team in Van Dyke Mortgage across the country. So
What?
pretty proud
Nice.
of that.
That's awesome, Kurt.
Yeah.
You guys are rocking it.
Close
So
loans.
were there any other teams in our immediate area that were in that top 10 list?
Yes. So both Nikki's other market centers, those 2 teams are up there as well.
That's so awesome to hear that. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I always like it when I see an offer coming in with Van Dyke on the other side of that. At least when it's one of those 3 market center Van Dyke teams. So thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Great stuff. All right, cool. Well, let's jump in. If anybody else has something, feel free. I mean, this is an open forum. Feel free to unmute, chat, talk about what you're hearing out there in the marketplace. What I wanted to cover today, we're going to, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening out there in the markets and maybe some of the other sectors, some of the things that I'm seeing, maybe hear some of the things that you're seeing out there. And then we're going to dive into the numbers and we'll go through the 3 counties and look at the market numbers there. And then I'll dive in a little bit more on kind of how we use these in our listing consultations and our buyer consultations to help buyers and sellers understand the markets and kind of what's happening. And I'll front load all that. I was listening to Bold Coach Brian, what's his last name?
It's Erhan, but I don't know exactly how to say it.
Erhan,
was
yeah,
gonna say-
Brian.
Last name with the letter E.
Yeah, Erhan. So Brian, it was funny. He was talking to our ALC, and he was like, "What's your biggest challenge right now in the market? What's your biggest challenge you're having in your business?" And so I guess let's kick it off with that. Like, what's your biggest challenge in your business right now? What are you hearing? I mean, I know what my response is to that statement, but I'm curious to hear what our other top producing agents are hearing. Like, what's your biggest challenge right now that you're facing in your business? Spacebar unmutes in case you were wanting to share. I know we all got challenges. What are you seeing? What in your own business? What's your biggest challenge? Don't be shy. Anyone?
Buyers are definitely feeling
Yeah,
fatigue.
go ahead, Alton.
Yeah, buyers are definitely feeling fatigue when they've made multiple offers that are solid or above ask with even an appraisal gap and then lose out to a cash offer. We got a buyer who's gone through that multiple times now and is just feeling the fatigue of it and wants to try something different, but there's not much else to try.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Buyer fatigue. That's a big one on our team too. And then the question is like, how many, like what's the threshold, right? How many times can we pour in the cup before it just overflows and they kick it over
Yep.
when it comes to those offers. So what do you see? Like how many, like, I mean, because we've certainly had some buyers that's just like, that's it, we're done, I'm out. Like, how many is it? What's it taking? Like, how many does that take? 3, 5? What are you seeing?
My average has been about 3, probably.
3 offers, and then your buyer's like, that's it, we're done.
Yeah, but I just did that buyer consultation class yesterday with Melissa. Or actually, I'm sorry, Wednesday. And it was phenomenal. So I think as long as we just set the expectations, make them understand upfront what's going on, I think that helps a lot. But being a newer agent, you know, you kind of jump in and you really don't have all that advice. So I worked through some crazy stuff, but I learned a lot. So, but yeah, definitely just let them know upfront what's going on, you know, and what they're willing to do and how much over they're willing to go and things like that. So it was a great class.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for sharing that, Cassie. Yeah, I mean, 3, man. And so 3 for you. What else? What other numbers are you seeing out there? Like, how many offers are you submitting for your buyers before they're throwing the towel in?
Well, as a listing agent, what I do, I wait 3 to 4 days to get more offers, because you never know. You have 3 offers, and let me tell you, maybe the one that I received the last minute on the 3rd or 4th day is the best one. And then I think as a realtor, I don't do my job just getting the first one that is a cash one and then put it on pending in 3 hours. You know, it's very disappointing to all the people who are having buyers, you know, and want to see the property. You never know if you need a backup, and that happened. I get a good backups from that too.
Yeah. Hey, Zeus, thanks for sharing that. I mean, from the listing side, that's how we roll it too. I mean, we kind of slow walk it from Thursday to Monday and let it marinate. And, you know, that's why everyone's like, oh, happy Friday. But like, actually, my week just started because I'm going to be talking to about 30 realtors or 40 realtors over the next 2 days, back and forth, negotiating offers to drive to Monday, you know. And also, I think I saw you show up like 3 offers to 5, 3 to 4. And they're like, that's it, we're done. Get me out of here. Like, this ain't for me. You know, it's interesting you say that, Jesus, because I think I'm thinking back, and I don't know, Mike Post, if you're on this call, you can kind of attest to that, where if you can get in early with your buyer offer, we're seeing listing agents like just snap them up. They don't want to work Friday through Monday. And they're like, hey, I don't want to deal with this multiple offer. Like, you know how many phone calls I got to make to agents? I don't want to deal with this. They're like, you send me a great offer and it's good price in terms, you got it. And so we're finding it's like, if we can get in
That's a
early,
good point.
you know, and then get it written well, come in strong from the get-go, build the rapport. I mean, it's turning in like, and I think we also had that one where it bounced back, came back on the market. And those ones that are coming back on the market, we were able to swoop in. They had a multiple offer scenario, drove it way above asking price. Deal dissolved. Seller was already under contract on another house. And the agent was like, we'll take less money. Just get it in now. And I'm like, okay, here you go. And we did. They got it. They bought it. It's interesting how that plays out. You know, one of the things that when Brian Earnhardt asked that question, what I wrote down was where one of the biggest challenges I'm hearing right now is combating all the other fuzz that's happening out there in the marketplace that people are hearing, and then formulating decisions based on that fuzz, so to speak, right? Oh, I'm hearing this, or I'm hearing that, or I'm waiting for, you know, the moratorium on evictions to then flood the market with foreclosures, or, you know, it's buyers, you know, I can't buy a house because I can't sell my house because I can't buy a house. And so it's like, how do we bring our people to then trust that what we're telling them is the good information and what they're hearing out there is the not so good information? Now, I don't know, anyone else having that as a challenge in their business? It's just me. It's just my people. Yeah, I see some head shaking. What are you hearing?
I'm actually meeting with some potential seller and buyer situation tonight. Some friends of mine who you literally just said verbatim all of their fears. And so this is whatever anybody has to offer. I'm open to it right now. This is great timing.
Yeah, well, you know, it's so interesting. I mean, I even think back to when I was new in real estate and like, how do I say the thing that I'm hearing that it makes sense to me, but then convey that to the people to then say, okay, you know, Gary says we need to be your real estate economist of choice. And how do I then make sure that I am that, and then that I'm able to deliver this information to them in a way that gets them to say, oh, you know what, that all makes sense. I'll tell you one thing. First of all, it starts right with this at the consultation for sure. So I'm going to tell you how we were using that. And then what I loved about when talking with Brian was the bold coach. He's like, it's scripts and dialogues, right? The words you use matter, and how you use those words matter. How you deliver that information matters. And that's what I'm like so excited to get back to bold, because it's like that muscle memory of like, how am I talking to my people right now? How do I, you know, what's my embedded commands, my inflection, mirror and matching, rate of speech, tonality? Am I using pacing and leading? Am I using the pain versus pleasure to then help people self-realize what it is that, you know, they should be doing based on what my thoughts are on the markets? And so like, it's this mastermind to get that, you know, the information, and then it's the skills and like the drilling it down to how we deliver it is a pretty big deal. So Ashley, you just mentioned that you're meeting with your friends or family member for a consultation, and what are some of the things that they're telling you they're hearing that they're making decisions on?
Yeah, so they're friends of mine, and they've been considering buying a house for about 18 months now. I'm about 2 months into being a realtor, and they're like, all right, you're up, you're our realtor. So we're having that discussion tonight. Yeah. So I've been talking to them since I started, and what I've been hearing from them the past 18 months, including the last 2 months I've been a realtor, is exactly like you said. You know, just the traditional, this market's insane. We are not buying into this market till it settles down a little bit. They mentioned, you know, the moratorium on, you know, the evictions coming back. They've mentioned all of those cliche things. I think they're just kind of hearing here and there. And I don't blame them. You know, I'd feel the same way too, if that's what I was hearing on the surface level. So I'm just trying to convince them of what I've been learning from, you know, Gary and everybody, that's just not the case. And I want to talk to them a little bit more factually about it. And they know I'm new to the markets. I just really want to feel like I have a good foundation.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your vulnerability, Ashley. I mean, we've all started somewhere, and you know, let's help. Like, anyone else feeling this way? Like, either give me a thumb up or just shake your head. Like, yep, I'm running into that. I see a lot of head shaking. So, what are you talking about to help put some of these things at ease with your people? How are you handling those objections or mindset spaces for people?
Hey, Jake, I was just going to say for Ashley, I think that was your name. Sorry, I'm driving. You know, you said that you're brand new, 2 months in the business. Guess what? We're all new to this market. Like, this market is new to everybody. So it's not just you. So luckily you've got the support and systems in place that you are, your ear to the ground, and you're hyper focused on making sure you know exactly what's going on, which puts you far ahead of most of the agents out there who, I just came back from a listing appointment and I was up against another agent who still had the mindset to tell the sellers, oh, you want to price it high so you have negotiation room. When was the last time any of us heard that? Never. I'm like,
Yep.
oh goodness, wow, we got to go back to way basics. Holy cow. So just knowing that you have this support here, you're far better than most of the other agents, and knowing that the market is constantly shifting, you're far ahead of a lot of the agents out there.
Thank you for that.
You know, to go on what Anna just said, thank you, Anna, for sharing that. I was listening to a coach, who was it? Oh, it was during our leadership academy that Howard was hosting. And I'm taking coaching skills camp. It's coming up at the end of this month. It's over Zoom. So if you've ever wanted to go to coaching skills camp, sign up through MAPS Coaching. It was always in person in Austin or California. So like, not only did I have to spend $800 to do it. I had to spend another $1,000 to get there. So I was like, I could sure use this in my world. And yet, well, it's on Zoom now. So I'm excited about that. And one of the things I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm going to be taking this. You're coaching massive amounts of people as a MAPS coach. What is the thing that I should really be, what is a piece of advice you have for me? And he said, when you ask a question, you should not be answering or talking for 17 seconds after you ask a question. Like, ask your people questions and then just zip it and let them process it. Let them think about it. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Think about those good questions and then really let them answer, because then we're going to be able to further move that conversation forward. I've always heard the person who talks the most controls or dominates the conversation, and the person who asks the most questions controls that conversation on where it goes. And that would, for me, was a big one. So Ashley, if I could serve you in any way, I would be like, ask a lot of questions to drill down what's important to them, and then use the information that we're talking about today for what we're hearing in the marketplaces to be able to then go back and revisit that. And I always love to lean on other experts, right? And just say like, okay, what is the Dave Ramsey of the world talking about in this market? And what am I hearing, people in the financial world talking about in this market? And then culminating all that together, which is cool.
Jake?
Yeah.
Jan here.
Hey, Jan.
We also are taking in all of this information, and sometimes we also fall victim to just seeing what our buyer can't buy. And what I used the last time with a buyer was looking at numbers, actual numbers of solds and pendings that are really good numbers, and saying, don't you want to be in that bucket? Don't you want to be a pending sale or a sold sale? Yes, it's not like it was a year ago, but guess what? We together can work and get you in one of the buckets rather than just saying goodbye to the market.
Yep. There
are people who are winning. Let's find out how we can win.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's deals in every market, and I mean, we've been able to find them, and people are buying and selling in every market, right? It's just a matter of, I go back to what I heard Tony DeCello say what a mastermind group that I was on with him. He's one of the master coaches in our company. He said a buyer is either qualifying or disqualifying for the opportunity to work with you every step of the way. At every stage, they're either qualifying or disqualifying. And so for us, we're like, okay, are you going to get pre-approved by a lender? No, not a buyer. Are you going to do you want to go out and see properties? No, you don't want to see anything? Not a buyer. You want to put offers in? No, not a buyer. Are you willing to do what it takes to win in a multiple offer scenario? No, not a buyer. And so it's like, it's where do we, are we playing to win, or are we playing not to lose when it comes to these? And that's why we have found that our buyer business is turbulent, just like everyone else, right? It's like 3 or 4 offers, they're throwing in the towel. They're like, we're done, and so it's a matter of how do we get them to that place and get the best offer in every time, their best absolute offer in every time. And that's been our kind of motto on our team. Like, is there anything left on the table for this buyer that if they said, dang it, if I just did this, I totally would have done it, and then I would have won. Like, we want to flush that out now and come in with that, versus, because they're not going to get an opportunity to negotiate after they get their offer in a lot of times, which is cool, which is crazy. Yeah. Marilyn, I see here, create urgency and includes cost of waiting add cost of waiting to their cost sheet. Oh, I love that, right? How many more months you want to pay rent? Okay, what are you paying, $2,500 a month rent, and your mortgage is going to be $1,250? Like, what's that going to cost you? Yeah, that's a good idea. That's real good. And then urgency. So I remember when I had a coach, Craig Goodlife, how do we create urgency? I think I might have asked this last time. How do we create urgency in people?
Show them they're saying no to.
Say that again, Will?
Show them what they're saying no to.
Ooh, and I love that because you said it's uncertainty, right? You know, it's like, okay, well, here's what you're going to missing out, FOMO. And then creating that uncertainty. I mean, fortunately, our market has so much uncertainty in it right now. People are getting clouded and they're overwhelmed with uncertainty. And so we got to bring them back to that, which is cool. All right. What else you hearing? What else you hearing in your business? Want to talk about flushing out in your world that this mastermind could help you with? We're going to jump into numbers in 4 minutes. What else you hearing out there? Biggest chest
I'm
challenges.
hearing a lot of doubt around FHA loans and other agents not knowing that there's not that they're good loans, that people think that they're just automatically bad. So a lot of agents will tell me like, oh, an FHA, I don't know if that's going to work, when there's nothing wrong with the loan.
Yeah, no, that's a big challenge for sure. You know, I'll have Kurt, maybe you can chime in on that in a minute, but I was listening to, I don't know, some kind of interview, and it was the CEO of, maybe it was Compass, or I don't know which one it was, but he was saying how the government loans are having a hard time competing in the private loan market right now. You know, the private loan, like it just, and maybe there's a stigma to that. I mean, there's certainly, you know, FHA buyers bring their own baggage sometimes. That's why they're kind of going FHA usually. And some, you know, is the seller willing to carry that baggage on for the buyer? It's an interesting point.
So Jake, I will add to that. And yes, I think it is a stigma. There's no difference between whether you're putting down 50% and doing a conventional loan or FHA and putting 3.5% down. The seller's still going to get the money that they agreed upon. And so there's really no difference between the inspections. There's no difference between appraisals. I shouldn't say no difference. How about little or no difference? You know, I mean, and my clientele right now is probably about 90% conventional. But that's just because the credit scores that we're seeing are 730 credit scores. So the only reason I would back it down to an FHA is if they didn't have the down payment to do a conventional loan and they could get away with 3.5% down. Now on the back side of that, on FHA, that mortgage insurance is going to be on there for the life of the loan. They're paying upfront mortgage insurance, and the maximum loan amount on an FHA loan is around $350,000. So basically, if you're looking at a $450,000 house, then you're going to have to put down $100,000 just to do an FHA loan.
You know, it's interesting, Kurt, that you say that. And, you know, one of the things I'm hearing is, you know, with our buyers that are losing at FHA is because they don't have the capital to bring. It's all about having the capital to bring, either to show that you're doing, you know, that you're cash heavy or that you can bring it above appraised value. And that's where we're seeing the loss in offer. Yeah. But I think like apples to apples, if there's an appraisal contingency, there's an appraisal contingency. At that point, there is no difference on the FHA world. But only a buyer would go FHA only if they would really have to. And if you're saying mainly it's credit score related or cash on hand related.
I mean, you know, in some cases, I could see going FHA and only putting down 3.5% and paying the gap between appraisal and purchase price, if that's what it comes down to.
So they could still do that.
I'm sorry?
They could still cover that gap, the appraisal gap, in the event that
absolutely.
They go FHA if they got the cash.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. That might be the reason why they only want to put down 3.5% to cover the gap.
And that's the situation that I have right now, is that they do have the cash on hand to cover an appraisal gap, and we put the offers in. And when I'm talking to certain agents, they just have this thing like, oh, it's a 1950s home. There's no way that it's going to pass FHA inspection. It's got to go conventional. And I said, what's the difference? If there's a broken beam, then it's not going to pass either inspection.
Yeah, no doubt. And so that's a good point, Derek. I think, you know, a lot of it, what we have to do, especially as Keller Williams agents, being the best educated agents in the world, we're going to be educating the agents on the other side of the transaction oftentimes as well. And, you know, it's a lot of that. In what I also love about what you said, Kurt, is we can, you know, lenders like Van Dyke. I mean, Kurt, how many times have you called the listing agent to break it down for them? When you have a buyer sending in an offer with your letterhead with approval, with the pre-approval letter.
I would say I do that at least 10 to 15 times a month.
Yep, exactly. So like whoever your lender partner is, get that lender on board to be your back pocket to say, hey, I need you to lobby for this buyer, and I need you to get in there, and I need you to get in the trenches with me, because the buyer looks great, I look great, lending looks great, but they have got a stigma. So that's something to think about as well. Cool, good point there. Anyone else have anything before we jump into numbers? The most exciting part. Cool. All right. I see a few people have come in. Tamara, thank you for sharing all the numbers with everyone. If anyone doesn't have it, I guess, Tamara, maybe you can just slap it in there one more time for people. But let's jump into the 3 counties. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through these. Oh, there was one more thing. No, we'll talk about it later. Let's talk about numbers. Actually, no, I'll talk about it now since this is a good time to talk about it. All right, so I was listening to my financial planner and they were talking about the Delta variant, right? COVID's real still and it's happening. And they put this screen on the board, and it was an interesting screenshot, and it made me think about what's coming and what's happening in winter. And, for whatever it's worth, this showed kind of where the rise in cases are, right? And what I see here is in the South, it's declining. And in the Midwest and the Northeast, it's rising. This was September. This was mid-September is when they showed this graph out. And it was just interesting to think about how this might impact our winter sales months here in real estate. As we always had that push, a slight push from winter, people coming down, they're like, we're sick of it. We don't want the winter anymore. And yet my thoughts when I saw this was, it's just going to drive it even more. If, people are seeing this, they're thinking like, okay, if it's much of our business as Midwesterners and Northeasterners who are coming down. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't see enough data here to get a thought on this. And the reason I say that is because the South has a larger amount of people getting sick. So if there's a decrease in the South, it could be like 100,000 to 90,000, and then the Midwest could be 15,000 to 22,000. So the increase in the Midwest is still not it's still not enough to get somebody to leave to go to a place that has higher numbers. If you kind of catch my drift.
Yep, interesting perspective, Derek. Thanks for sharing that. We're getting a lot of people that are like, oh, we want to go to Florida for one reason or another. The weather's great. They're working from home. The restrictions are a little bit looser here. I got a client who's moving back from Melbourne, Australia. They've been basically in jail for 18 months in their apartment. And they're like, we're coming back. Like, we can't deal with this anymore. We got to get out of here and come back. And, for whatever it's worth, and I mean, it's a whole, there's a lot of perspectives on that. It's just when I see information like that and I think about people who are moving to this area, what are the driving factors to move here? Something like that might just even, cause that to happen even more. I'm interested to see what the fourth quarter looks like. I'm readying my team for a very, very active fourth quarter this year. I don't know. Anyone else feeling the same? Yeah, I see a lot of head shaking. Yeah, no time off for me. I'm taking my vacation next week and that's it. I'm in the game. All right, let me show numbers here. Okay. All right, here we are. Let me move this out of here so I'm not looking at that. Okay, so as we do every month, we break down the market numbers. I want to shout out to my intern, Drew, who's now in college, who stepped away for a few hours to pull these numbers for us. And what we've got is Pinellas County, Pasco County, and Hillsborough County. And the last 5 years of listed inventory levels. And then the last 5 years of sold inventory in our markets. And then we do some math as that would go. And so what we saw from July to August, inventory went down from 2,458 to 2,335. So we had a slight decrease in inventory month over month. still way down year over year. Well over 1,000 units down even from last year. And last year was trending. I mean, that was on the trend of when it was going, starting to really bottom out. And it was interesting because I looked at last year, July to August, and there was a decrease July to August again last year. And that's kind of been the trend. Typically, we usually see inventory levels drop from July to August in Pinellas County. And then the sales volume, Pinellas County, down by about, I don't know, 80 units or so. Not even 40 units from 2109 to 2070. So pretty much flat as far as sales, slightly down from July to August, which is interesting. And it's because we had such a spike in 2020. I mean, everyone's like, I don't know, you're hearing buyers say, oh, my house, or sellers like, oh, we should have put our house on the market before the kids went back to school, and that's, now they're like, oh, now school's over. It'll be interesting to see what happens in September if it continues to remain flat like it did last year with all the sales volume. That's why we're thinking like, okay, we'll see what happens here in the fourth quarter. So if we take the sold numbers, divide them by the active inventory, we get an absorption rate of 89%. Can someone share with me what absorption rate is? What is absorption rate?
How quickly the listings that go on the market sell.
Yeah. So how fast the market's absorbing the active inventory is your absorption rate. So the higher the absorption rate, the faster the markets are absorbing those properties. And then if we take that 89%, and here's how we figure out the month supply of inventory, the whole market is 100% divided by the absorption rate, 89%. We just use the whole number, drop the percentage. So 100 divided by 89, we get a 1.2 months supply of inventory. So what does that mean? Someone who's been on this mastermind time and time again, what is a 1.2 month supply of inventory? What does that mean?
That's a seller's market. That means that if for some reason or another, there's not another house that goes on the market, it's going to take 1.12 months for that inventory to go away.
Thank you, Kurt. Yep. So month supply of inventory means that if nothing else comes on the market in Pinellas County, we will sell everything in 1.2 months if nothing else comes on the market. Now that's probably not going to happen. And yet that's our indicator. So what the National Association of Realtors says is that from a 0 to about a 4.5, 5 month supply of inventory, that's a seller's market. The closer to 0, the more aggressive the seller market is. So if we're at a 1.12 month supply, it's a pretty super aggressive seller's market. And I'm sure you're seeing that out there. I'm sure you're seeing multiple offer scenarios, above asking price. That means that home values are appreciating. When NAR tells us that from about a 4.5 or 5 month supply of inventory to a 7 month or 6 or 7 month supply of inventory, that's an even or a split market. And then everything from about a 6.5 and up is a buyer's market. We haven't seen a buyer's market as a whole in our county since I got in real estate in 2013. I think when I got in 13, it was maybe somewhere around a 4 month supply of inventory. So we've been riding a seller's market for the better part of a long time. Any questions on that?
For the better part of forever.
Better part of since the recovery from the recession in like 2012.
Well, I think what's interesting about this too is August of 2021 is really no different from August of 2017, no different from August of 2018, no 2019. The only difference is there's less loan. I mean, I'm not seeing this there on this chart, but I'm imagining that there's there's more homes listed. Oh yeah, going back up. So you have twice the amount of homes listed. So the same amount of homes are selling.
So that's an interesting point, Brian. I love you brought that out because demand hasn't changed.
The same demand is there.
Demand has changed. And so it's one of those things like I was listening to something about a month or so ago where the amount of pent up demand that we have right now is going to carry us through any kind of turbulence in inventory levels. The demand is there. So, I mean, it's so interesting that, and I love it. I don't know, somebody real quick, do the math from August of 2017. What was the take 2024 divided by 5,658. What numbers do we get out of that? Someone has a calculator.
It's less, I don't know.
Somebody's doing it right now, and chime in when you're done, because you know what we're looking at here is demand has not changed.
Jake, it's 0.36.
So 0.36. And so that's about a 3-month supply of inventory, I'll bet. What's it? So take 100 divided by
2.78. It's 2.78 months.
Yeah, so 2.78 months supply of inventory. So in 2017, we were talking about a 2.7 month supply of inventory, and I bet you we were like, what? 2.7 months supply of inventory? That is crazy fast. Like, go, let's go. Like, it's it. Where everyone's like, well, I'm ready for the bubble to pop, ready for it to pop. It's coming. Here it comes. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. So I mean, it's interesting to see that. Thank you for doing that. Is that Donna? I did my screen's away. Thank you. I think it was Donna.
Interesting. Hey, Jake, this is Chad. Just got a quick question. I mean, do you know, is there a formula to do like a predictive for the rest of the year?
Can we predict what's going to happen the rest of the year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brian's laugh. Well, fortunately, we get a rear view mirror, not a crystal ball, right? And so, I mean, I guess let's talk about that real quick. What are some of the outliers that could drive something different happening that might happen the rest of this year? What might happen?
If interest rates go up?
Interest rates could go up. So Kurt, help me out, buddy. What are interest rates doing?
Interest rates are at 3% and stabilized. They're not going any place.
Interest rates not going nowhere.
Q1, Q2 of next year, you'll see rates drop.
Rates drop.
Drop again?
Drop.
Q1, Q2. Watch.
Okay. All right.
Dang. Okay. Bingo. All right. What else could happen in the next, I don't know, rest of this year that might drive some kind of a change in this?
COVID could be gone and we'll never hear of it again. We'll get away with it. It's just done. We're done with it.
Never hear about it again.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. That same graph I showed you about, I listened, there was I can't remember who it was, but there's 4 other variants that they've identified beyond the Delta variant that are right behind it. So just so you know, COVID ain't going nowhere. They're not showing up at a high level right now. This is a Delta variant pandemic only, pretty much. However, it's, this is a now normal for sure for us. So I don't think that's going anywhere. What about moratorium on evictions and forbearance? Who's got some knowledge on that they want to drop?
So I will chime in on that. I hate to hog this conversation,
Go,
but
baby.
NAR is saying that there's 4% of population nationwide that are still in forbearance. Now,
4%?
4%, that's it. So if there's a situation where there's, let's just say 4% in Pinellas County of our population, that would only bring us up to 3 months of inventory if all the forbearances had to go back on the market.
So what were they what was the word on the street, I don't know, 6 months ago about forbearance? Do you remember, like, what were they saying was going to be, like, how many people were in forbearance then?
Oh, it was high. It was high.
So what happened? How did these people get out of forbearance?
Modification. They went back on their job and started making their mortgage payments again. I mean, and we shared this. The average amount of equity in a home right now is $177,000.
I read that.
43% have no mortgage. So if they're in forbearance and they have to put their house on the market or let it go back to the bank, they're obviously going to choose you guys to sell their house rather than let it go back to the bank.
And the other thing
Jake,
to try to rainbow on that. Oh, go ahead. Go. Next voice,
this is Mary Beth. Hey, the other thing I was going to add is keep in mind too that Florida's a judicial state and it takes about 2 years to foreclose on a property.
yeah.
So if people are waiting for foreclosures, they're going to be waiting for a couple of years.
And most likely those foreclosures will dissolve, just like this forbearance issue. Like they're just going to go away because their equity is going to be there, and or it's going to be such a small portion. One of the things that I've seen and read is that one of the differences between 2008 debacle and what's happening right now is the banks are committed to helping people get through this, unlike they ever were before. I mean, are you seeing that, Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, back in 2008, I mean, that was something that we created as a banking industry and a mortgage industry. But, you know, now then, this isn't due to that. You know, I remember doing 100% financing down to 560 credit score back then. I can't even do 100% financing without,
Hold on here.
you know,
Turn
down
off
payment
that
assistance.
speaker.
So there's a big difference there, huge difference. And yes, I think the banks are committed to doing that. They're attaching the forbearance monies as a second mortgage. So if they ever have to, you know, sell or refinance, then at that point, the forbearance money has to be paid back. Or they're doing loan modifications.
Yeah,
So-
tons of loan mods out there right now, especially with interest rates so low.
Right.
So Jake, I'd like to add to that.
Yep.
This is Pam Doberly.
Hey, Pam.
So, you know, I was active in that 2008, 9, 10 market. I mean, I closed in one particular year, 44 or 45 short sales. So,
Wow.
but this is not going to be that kind of market. And I think anybody that's concerned or fearful or feeling like they're not well trained for it, now any foreclosures, I think we will have some sales due to foreclosures because some number of sellers, based on my experience before, simply are not going to like the stress and the pressure of what their mortgage payment is, particularly if their employment status changed. They may or may not have the same income. They may not want to live that way anymore. However, those sales are still going to be simple sales for us because there is enough equity in the property. It's just a matter of getting the property sold before the foreclosure date. So, and my understanding is, I heard the comment about Florida being a judicial state. From what I'm hearing, it's not taking 2 years. So don't bet the ranch on that. I had heard that they're pacing them faster now in Florida than they used to. So,
I heard that too, Pam.
And so, you know, I heard there's not the kind of time we had before. So I think what needs to happen as agents, if you're going to list some, be sympathetic. A lot of times it takes a lot of emotional support for them, for those people, because it's not a positive situation. It's a negative situation for them. And yet, if you can learn as an agent to go to the clerk of the circuit court for whatever county and find out do we have a scheduled foreclosure date? And if you don't, get an authorization to communicate with the seller's lender enough to find out where are they in the foreclosure process so that you know how much time you have and then pace the sale accordingly. Don't try to be the hero that gets them 3 times what they should get on the market or even a high end. You know, their goal is to get out and beat the clock. So the best service you can provide for them is help them beat the clock, not necessarily help them make their mint this time around. Right.
Yeah. Love that, Pam.
Because that foreclosure on their credit will negatively affect them unless things have changed. It's been a little while since I checked, but it negatively affects your credit for 7 to 10 years. In fact, Kurt could probably speak to that. So better to get them out, even if they don't make a mint and preserve their credit than to try to prove the point and have the foreclosure happen before you sell.
Yeah, 7 years for a conventional loan in order for them to get back in a house. A little bit less on FHA and VA.
Okay, thank you for that.
Cool.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question to that? Do pre-foreclosures affect your credit?
If it is filed as a list pendants, then yes, it's considered a foreclosure.
And also to get to the Liz pendants, isn't it 90 days? You have to be like 3 months behind on your payments, or is it 60 days?
It's 90.
90.
It'll show on the credit report, it'll show 90 days, say 90, more than 90 days late, and it'll say less pendants filed on the credit report most of the time.
And you can find out the Liz pendants if you learn how to go on to the, back in the day, I learned how to go on to the clerk of the circuit court's website. With a phone call or two to their office, they will explain to you how to navigate their website and look up those statuses. So you can look up Liz pendants on a property quietly without having to have anybody help you, other than learning how to navigate it the first time. It's been a while since I did it and they changed their website, so I have to learn again. But just the mere fact that they didn't make 3 payments negatively affects their credit, because it's going to show 90 days late on their credit report, in addition to the Liz pendants. So does it negatively affect them? Somewhat, but that's not nearly as detrimental as a foreclosure is. And that was the strong argument in the short sale days, was if we could help a buyer or a seller get through a short sale, one of the key services that we provided was protecting their credit enough that within 3 years, 2 to 3 years, they could buy another home. But with that foreclosure hanging over your head, it's a long journey to get to do it again.
You know, and that brings up another thought I just had. And Derek, maybe we can get back to our knock. I wonder if knock could give somebody in this situation, since
Jake,
they do cover 6.
It's
If you
possible.
don't mind, let me jump in on the forbearance thing, Jake, for just a second, because this is something that you guys could utilize out there. So if there's a situation where they're in forbearance right now, I can't refinance them until they've started making their mortgage payments and made 6 payments, then I could refinance them. Here's where I'm going with this. If they sell their house while they're in forbearance, I could turn around and get them a mortgage the next day.
And the other thing to know about that is, unless banking policy has changed, and so get me up to date on this too, but my experience has been that once a homeowner was 60, definitely 90 days behind, the bank would not take a partial payment. So unless they could gather up enough money to completely catch themselves up financially, they would not accept their payments, which was always a frustrating dilemma that I didn't understand about the banking industry. Quite often I would talk with a seller and they'd say, listen, Pam, we've got half of what we owe. They will not take our payment because until we can pay the whole thing, they won't take any of our money. And now we're on the downhill slide to foreclosure.
Yep,
So,
the avalanche.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything different about that now, Kurt?
No, it's the same thing. They won't accept partial payments.
No, they'll send it back. They'll just straight return the sender.
Yep.
That's right.
But what I'm saying though is, if they're in forbearance right now, I can't refinance them. If they sell their house, I can get them financed the following day. So the
I
big
love
thing is
that.
that forbearance follows the property, it doesn't follow the individual.
That's good. That is good to know.
Awesome.
That is really good to know.
Great info.
So if you're talking to someone right now that's in forbearance, they go, well, I want to refinance. Well, you could tell them, well, you're going to have to go and start making your mortgage payments for the next 6 months. Then you can get refinanced, or we could sell your house and we can get you financing on something the following day. So maybe that'll help you sell more houses and help the buyer off the ledge.
And quite often, the other thing to recognize about that, thank you, Kurt, we would appreciate doing more of that, more sales.
Yeah.
And the other benefit of that too is, my experience has been the refinance may lower their payment, but as a general rule, it's not a deep enough dive to get them more financially stable again. I mean, for an awful lot of people, at least my experience was, to help them have a mortgage payment that was $100, $200 less a month wasn't enough. If they were already paying $2,000, $1,800, $2,000 a month in payment, if they had been unemployed and now they're employed in a lower paying job, they needed to drop their payment by closer to 50%. So they needed to find different kind of housing at a different cost for a while until they could get completely back on their feet. And many of the people I helped in short sale days, they've since come back to me and they've recovered enough that I've gotten them into houses that were more similar to where they started from. So it was a journey for them over time. And as service providers, if you can be heartfelt about it and help them through that difficult time to get back on their feet. I mean, some of the clients I work with are very loyal now, very loyal.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that, Pam. Alton, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah. So the knock program will help you get a mortgage on your next home prior to purchasing your current home. So that probably would not be a solution for this particular problem that a person's facing. However, Keller offers would, because you get an immediate offer, very quick closing, and the offers go through Zillow, OfferPad, all the different home buyers, as well as we got agent programs for the ones that are not a part of Keller offers.
Good idea.
Or the other one. Yeah. So that would be a good solution that we can easily get certified within a couple hours to provide that as a solution.
Yeah, good point. All right, cool. Let me jump back in numbers. Of course, chime in. I'm not going to stifle anybody who wants to share, that's for sure. But I'll pull these numbers back up and we'll keep going through the counties. So that we're going to go macro level, then we'll jump into a little bit more micro level. So I'm going to jump right over to Pasco, next on my list here. So Pasco County, August active inventory, 1,541, down from 1,689 month over month in Pasco. And sales up, nope, down. 1,404 month over month was in July. We were at 1,479, so slightly down there. So inventory levels dropped a little bit. Sales volume dropped a little bit. We do the math, divide the sold into the active, we get a 91% absorption rate, which we see is a 1.1 month supply of inventory. Still aggressive sellers market in Pasco. And let's jump over to Hillsborough. Inventory levels drop again from down to 2,963 from July. They were at 3,246. So that's a pretty substantial drop in inventory levels. And our sales volume also down slightly, mostly flat, but ever so slightly down, 2,699 down from 2,703. So pretty much flat. Again,
Jake, this is Mary Beth. Did you notice though for Pasco and Hillsborough that August number is the highest sales number for the last 5 years? Like look at the 2,699. It's the highest sales number. So stuff is still selling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though there's not a lot of inventory out there.
Demand has not changed. Demand has not changed one bit.
Right.
And even within Hillsborough, go back up here.
Yeah, look at Pasco.
Demand is super strong.
Yeah, 1,404 is the highest number for Pasco in sales too. See that over the last 5 years for August?
So I'm hard pressed to hear, oh, it's not a good time to buy. It's a fantastic time to buy. There wouldn't be 1,404 people doing it if it wasn't a great time to do it.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, Jake, this is Barb. In one of my beach communities where I have a listing, I was drilling down to really, look at the numbers for August as soon as they came out in terms of sales. And this is really unusual. In August, in that price point, in that particular zip code, it was 33706, which is the St. Pete, Treasure Island, Sunset Beach, St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, Sunset Beach market. There were more sales, unit sales in the month of August than in any other month of the entire year. Well, that's not the norm for beach communities because it's usually March and April, and then maybe June is number 3. So we all know it's all unusual, but I just thought that was a really, really interesting stat.
Do you mind asking what price range that was in?
It was high. I have the biggest listing I've ever had. So $1 million plus, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, let's jump into the macro. So before we jump into the micro, so we're going to go macro. That's a 5-year look, and then we're going to drill it down into price class category, and we're going to talk about that a little bit now. Any questions on that 5-year snapshot of what we just talked about? And I just want to go over, we're going to talk more about absorption. If this is the first time you've been on the Mastermind or you don't come very often, this is what we use to then, this isn't going to be how long it's going to take your house to sell. This is how long the market, this is an indicator of how fast the markets are moving. The lower the month supply of inventory, the markets are moving so fast. And that's what we have found. I mean, it's been chaos. It's like, this is the fastest market that anyone has ever worked in real estate. The fastest this year. And that's just, we've seen it. We saw it. We've got over 20% appreciation in Pinellas County this year so far. And it's going to climb probably. We'll see what happens fourth quarter. I mean, I will be interested to see what the numbers come out in first quarter of 2022 and see, like, was it a 40% appreciation year? Was it? Could be. Okay. Yeah, Brian, go.
I was gonna say I have a house that I listed. It's been on the market 7 days, and I'm mildly depressed. Okay.
No, it's funny. We put a house on the market in a community and for $500,000, and it didn't sell the first weekend. And my agents are like, "Oh, it needs a price reduction, doesn't it?" And I'm like, "No, it doesn't need a price reduction. It's priced right. Just give it a minute. All right, so let's jump into the price class categories. So as I mentioned, we use this with our clients actively. So I print out all 3 counties. So I got, Hillsborough, Pasco, Pinellas. I print them out separately. So whenever I'm talking to somebody, I can slide it right in front of them and be like, here's how it looks for you based on what you want. And that's where we dive into these numbers. And so I'm going to look at, let me get my technology out here. Hang on. So I'm looking at, we can break this month supply of inventory down into price class category. And so one of the things we learned talking last month was that, I heard agents talking about this as well. The meat of our market, which is like the majority of the houses for sale and the majority of the houses that have sold, it used to be like 200 to 400, like a couple years ago. That was like the meat of Pinellas County, Pasco, or really Pinellas and Hillsborough was at 200 to 400. Pasco was slightly behind that. Houses are a little bit less expensive there. And that has changed. What I've found was like, I think it was this month was the first month I noticed that the 400 to 500 percentage was a higher percentage than the 200 to 250 percentage. So in all reality, this right here, and you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen, 250 to 500, that's now the meat of our market. So we've scaled up, straight up have scaled up. And that's the one thing by tracking these numbers every month, every year, to kind of see these trends. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, the new home, like first time home buyer market, it's no longer 140 to 100 to 200. It's like 200 to 250, maybe up to 300 is the first time home buyer market now. That's why the FHA limits are higher, because that's where a lot of that first time home buyer market's buying. So if we take, let's do the math together. So on this sheet, you're going to see active listings, and let's just look at let's look at 140,000 to 160,000. There were 82 for sale. And in Pinellas County, that same price class category, there were 68 that sold. So if we take the 68, divide that by 82, I get an 83% absorption rate. 100 divided by 83 is a 1.2 month supply of inventory, which is interesting because that is softer than the market as a whole. The market as a whole in Pinellas is a 1.12. So in that 140 to 160 range, it's a softer market. Then if we jump into that 200 to 250, where there's 221 that were for sale and 240 that have sold. Take your 240 divided by 221, gives us 108%. 100 divided by 108% is a 0.92 month supply of inventory, which is we're talking less than 4 weeks. That is a faster market. So what are your thoughts when you hear that? What are you thinking right now when you hear that it's a softer market in the 160 range than it is in the 200 to 250 range? And everyone's mind blown right now. They're just like, don't talk to me, Jake. That's it. I put it on mute and I'm turning my camera off because I'm laying down. What are you thinking?
Priced houses will actually take a little bit longer to sell than your more highly sought after, well-priced properties.
It's very possible. You might have, once you get into that lower range, it might be a little bit longer days on market, quite possibly. What else?
It could be condition or location too. So for the lower prices, I've seen some lower price stuff and the condition's been horrible in some of those houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could very well be, right? What we know is like in Pinellas County, the central part of Pinellas County, it's a softer market than along the coast range, the coastal areas. So like Pinellas Park, Largo, North St. Pete, that whole like Kenneth City, it's a little bit softer in there than it is, you know, Bel Air on up through and down to Seminole, Gulfport, on up to Clearwater, Palm Harbor, Dunedin, Tarpon. It's Safety Harbor, and then down in like, you know, Wheaton Island, St. Pete, and Old St. Pete. Like that's a faster market,
Well,
higher sale price, more people.
does it mean anything that there's 100% absorption rate from 160 to 179,000? 94 listing, 94 sold. Does that mean anything?
Well, maybe. So that's a good point. So you said, so the next price class category up from 140 to 159.9 up to 160 to 179.9 is a faster market as you go up?
Yeah, well, the 160 to 179 had 94 listings in August, and that same price range had 94 units sold in August.
When
So
you
that would mean that
when
100
you
of them.
divide, yeah, when you divide 100 by 100, you get 1 month's inventory.
Yep.
That's
So
1
it's,
month
it's
inventory.
a faster. So
Yeah.
it's actually a faster market as you're going up in the price class category. What could that mean?
Well, it's all part of my discussion with sellers because they may have somebody, they may know somebody that's in a faster market than their house is, but they're going to compare their house to their friend or neighbor or whatever. But their house is their house, and that's the one we have to talk about.
Great point on that. And you know, the other thing I think about is who's buying these houses? Where, like, what are these buyers? Where are they coming from? And who's buying these houses? We can already see, like, we can just straight look. The highest number of inventoried homes, 20% of our entire market was 300 to 400. Just as an FYI, that used to be like 250 to 300 or 200 to 250. It was never that. It was that. So we bumped it up. So that's 528 is the most number of homes are for sale in Pinellas are in that range. And lo and behold, most number of sales. So 432. So if we look at that, I mean, that is the quintessential buyers at 300 to 400 range. Like how many of those you got in your pipeline right now? And so if we take that 432 divided by 528 is 81%. And again, that's going to be about a 1.23. It's just interesting to see this and kind of think about it. Okay, what does that mean? And well, it might mean for your seller that, you know, as we can see that there's more sales in that price class category. They might have to be the best priced home in that area to be able to get top dollar, like the shiny penny getting all of the offers. Interesting to think about. And then just to kind of round this out, let's jump up to the 800 to 899. There were 40 sales, 800 to 899, and 48 for sale. Jeez. Again, 83%. 1.2 month supply of inventory. Where does it end, right? At the million plus or million? You know what? Here's an interesting thing to think about. From 900 to 999, 24 houses sold in that range. But from 800 to 899, 40 houses sold in that range. So if you got a seller and they're right in that bread basket of that 800 to a million range, how could you use this data to help them make a better decision?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, 900 to 999 number seems to be very low. So maybe we can ask him to list it for more than a million then, because look at the million numbers.
Very well possible, right? You'll have to look at that. This is over a million, but just keep in mind that means a million to infinity. And yet when I'm looking at this, is like, okay, there's 24 that sold in 9 to 999. There's 40 that sold in 8 to 899. But if I look at the active inventory, it almost is the same. There's 41 for sale in 900 to a million, and there's 48 for sale from 8 to 899. So if they were right on the edge, be like, hey, if we got an 8 in the front of the number, you basically double your chances of selling for the most money possible if there's an 8 in the front of the number versus a 9.
Bigger buyer pool.
It's a bigger buyer pool, right? Bigger buyer pool. It's just interesting to look at that. This is how we're using these when we're talking to our clients. Like, and it's like, okay, so what does that mean to you? Like that same question I just asked you, ask your client, like, what does that mean to you when you see that, when you see what that looks like? So that is the breaking down the absorption rates by price class category. What are your thoughts? What questions do you have? What can I share with you? Any thoughts? Mine's blown.
Where can you get these documents? Where so we can study these?
Good point. Good question. So we provide them to you every month. So you'll get them. Like actually, if you look in the chat, I guarantee Tamara's put them in there 3 or 4 times. Just go ahead and download them straight from there.
I also added a download link to the online ubaldinitraining.com calendar. If you click on this class where you click to register, there's a link there now to also download these in case somebody else asks you.
Yeah. And so here's the other thing, like our commitment, we're going to continue to provide everybody these numbers in this format every month. However, figuring out how to pull these numbers. It's not, you know, we're not doing lunar landings to get these numbers. And so you can pull these numbers yourself as well and get these. As a matter of fact, I have my intern Drew do it. I'm going to be having him do this for Manatee County, Sarasota County. Anyone ever sell Manatee or Sarasota besides me? I do. We're actually going to also pull Hernando, even though there's a Hernando board. I talked to an agent up there. They're like, don't join the Hernando board. There's like 5 houses for sale on the Hernando Board of Realtors website. Like everyone puts it on pro anyways. So we're going to pull Hernando. I'm going to pull all the surrounding counties because I mean, Manatee, Sarasota County is massively growing right now. It's crazy. Their market is red hot heat, and they have a faster. I lived in Bradenton. I went to high school down there. Our population doubled in the winter in Bradenton. Like the amount of snowbirds that are moving down there right now, it's crazy. If you're not tapping into that market, you can sell in Manatee and Sarasota. It's not that far. Just drive over the bridge. You'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. Get some lavender essential oil burning in the car and just go over the bridge. You'll be okay. What other thoughts do you have when you see these numbers? Good question. Thank you for asking that, Lewis. What else you got? Thoughts, questions? You want me to show you real quick how I pulled these numbers? Yeah,
sure.
I get a thumb up. All right, let's do it. It'll take 5 more minutes. We're going to end early today. We're not going to go the full 2 hours. Yeah, Karen.
Can you pull these for Polk?
I believe, okay, so you can pull these for any market that Stellar MLS. You can pull it for Orlando. As long as, like, that's the whole thing. Like, the MFR is the largest, or which is now Stellar. It's the largest MLS in the state. And actually, you can pull Puerto Rico. And so you can pull these for any county. So go to MFR's website, check out all the counties that they service. You can pull it for every county that they service. It's all the same.
Jake?
Yep.
Can I add in here, they can just pull it up, not even by county, but by city.
Yep.
By subdivision. I mean, you can get micro on these same numbers, and sometimes that helps the seller price.
It does. And thanks for bringing that up, Jan. So I'm going to show you how I pulled these numbers, and then I'm going to show you how I do it for the neighborhood. So hang in there with me. Let me go over to my other screen here and see what I got pulled up. Let me just pull this up. Here, come on. There it is. Hang on a second. I'm moving screens around here. Read that. Okay. Let me share this one. All right. MLS, everyone sees that? Okay, here's how I pull it. Here's how we pull these numbers. And again, I'm showing you this because it's more important that you know how to do it. We're still going to provide it for you. Drew's committed to working for me for the rest of his life, so he can pull these numbers for me every month. All right, so what I'm looking at, here's how I do it. Here's how we did it. I'm going to go to, first of all, go down to add remove, click on that, and move over on market date. And so I'm just going to remove everything else on my MLS here. So that's the only one there. So you'll find it over here in the add remove stuff. It's on market date. Move that over here and on market date. And then go back. And then I'm going to go to county, Pinellas. There we are. And then I'm going to go down to on market date, click on the calendar, go back to August 1st through August 31st. 2,338 matches. That's every house that had a on market date of August. That could have gone on the market for 1 minute. It could have gone on the market in July and was still on the market in August. That is on market active inventory. Now you'll notice this number fluctuates because it just is what it is because, and I don't know, I got to go back and look at the market numbers. What did Pinellas say it was? 2335. So now it reads 2338. So somebody had a correction that they sent over to Pro and said, hey, actually this house was supposed to be on the market in August and it says September or whatever the case might be. I don't know which one it is. It's close enough for what we're doing. We're not building pianos here. Okay, so that's how I find the actives. Just do it for every county you got. And now let's look at sold data. So let me just reset my search here. So then for sold data, I'm clicking on sold and then click on the calendar. Go back to August 1st through August 31st. Okay, Pinellas.
That's a ton of work, man.
I know, that's why I have my intern do it.
Jeez Louise, I thought there was a quick button you press and it was all spinning right out there for you. This is crazy.
All right, so here it shows 2000. Oh, my screen. 2000. Oh, go away, screen. Come on. It covered it up. What does it say? 2076. So there's a few more that somebody said they reached out to Pro. They said, actually, my house sold. You had it sold in this month. It actually sold here. So that's how we got the numbers. So then you can break that down. Then how do we do it by price range? We just come over here to price 200. Oh, I unchecked that little box there. 200. Oh, come on. To 299, 999. 510. Is that accurate? No. What? Oh no, that's not the one we did. We did 249, 999. 241.
Do we need to put the extra 3 zeros?
So you can, I mean, again, I just want to show you how we did it. I removed the zeros by unchecking this radio button. For the sake of our report, that's what we're doing for you. Do it however you like for the sake of your report. Any questions on that? Now,
without the 3 zeros unchecked, you can't do the 999.
Yeah, you can't do the 999, 999. So just to remember that doesn't mean you can't come to Gary's Mastermind every month. You still got to come. Don't just skip it because you got the numbers now. Just because you have a scalpel, it doesn't make you a surgeon. All right. And so then Jan was mentioning breaking it down by neighborhood, which I love that. And so here, and I won't use a school example like I did last week. Pam gave me a wrist slap for talking about schools last week. So we're not going to talk about schools. So let's talk about if I wanted someone to buy a house, let's say in my favorite neighborhood in Dunedin, which is where I live in Dunedin. And they're like, we want to buy in Dunedin, but we want to kind of be, North Dunedin in the golf cart range. That way we're close to everything and we like the area over there. So I'm going to click active pending sold in the last 6 months. I'm going to type Dunedin. Right. And they might be like, well, and our budget is somewhere between like 300 and 600,000. Like, okay, let's check it out. So 300 to 600 in Dunedin. We got some numbers and they're like, well, really, we want North Dunedin. We don't want that South Dunedin stuff because we don't want to live near downtown. And we just want to kind of be in the golf cart range. And, so that's going to be somewhere like, I don't know, let's say down Skinner Boulevard up here to approximately Pinehurst and on up, you know, we might be able to, I don't know, they can give across Pinehurst. We'll bring it over here to like Keene. Whoa, back up. All right, let's just say they want this area and they don't care about Fairway Estates. Like, we don't want to be in Fairway Estates. They're going to just come up here. All right, so I'm going to be like, okay, well, let's see what the markets are doing in this range right here. Let's say you had a seller who's wanting to sell in that range, and that's what they got. So we got 50 here, and let's change this to single family home. So we're not looking at any condos. Drop it down 100. All right, we got results. So the first thing I'm looking at here is active inventory. So right now for sale in that area, in that range, we've got 14 that are currently for sale. I like to drill this down. Like if you had someone who was selling their house in the Hammocks neighborhood of Palm Harbor, you'd probably pull the Hammocks, Wexford, Lees, and like Arbor Glen, and you would just pull those 3 neighborhoods. You're not going to pull also, you know, Ennis Glen just because it's the same zip code, because they're different markets. So know your market, find out what that looks like. But for the sake of this, this is what we're doing. And then pendings, 15, so 10, 15 pendings, and the rest are sold. That's a ton of sold, like 70. I don't know, how many is that? That's a lot. So let me get my calculator out here. So if I got 100 total, minus out the active inventory, which is 14, that means, and then minus out those 15 pendings, that means 71 have sold in the last 6 months. So here's how I have this conversation with sellers. I got 71 that sold in the last 6 months. I got 15 that are currently under contract. I got 14 that are actively for sale. I take the pendings and the solds and I put them together as one. So I add those together because if they're pending, it was enough to get the job done. We're going to assume they're going to sell. If you really wanted to get technical, we're seeing 25% of houses come back on the market. So you might take that 15 and multiply it by 25% to account for fallout. If you're a high C, that would be like 3 of them, right? So for the sake of what we're doing, I'm going to leave them in there. So 71 plus 15. Everyone tracking with me so far, I got 86 on that sold category. Did I lose anyone so far? Yep, we're good. Okay, so I got 86 that sold in the last 6 months. Divide that by 6. That means 14 are selling every month. Sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got 14 that are selling every month, and I got 14 that are actively for sale. So what's my absorption rate?
1 month.
100%. Right? I got 1 month supply of inventory for houses in Dunedin right now. Lightning fast. Let me stop sharing my screen so I can see people's faces again. All right, there you are. All right, so what are your thoughts? What are your questions? Are you like, Jake, you just blew me away? Like, can you do that again? Or anyone, did I lose you? Marlene, I lost you. Where did I lose you? If I lost you, off somebody else. Nowhere, you're like, I don't even know where I got lost. I'm just in the woods and I got a blindfold on. I'm walking around, bumping into trees.
Can I jump in, Jake?
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Let me just say, I was blown away too the first time I started coming to Masterminds, but the more you come, the better it gets.
Love it. Love that. That's great. So I'll break it. Let me do it one more time because obviously that didn't take very much time. And I'll do it for the other scenario that I just mentioned. So let me share my screen with you. I'll do it one more time and then I'll answer questions and we'll roll on with our day. All right, so here I am at the MLS. I'm with a seller. I'm at their house, you know, and they want to list it something and they're like, you don't know my market. I'm selling it with the realtor who lives 3 doors down. And you're like, well, obviously I know your market because anyways. So you're battling back against these other realtors who are trying to take your listing. So you're like, okay, I'm in Hammocks. I'm looking at active pendings and solds. And I'm going to be looking in Palm Harbor. I'm using Pinellas references because that's where I live. You can do this for anywhere. So I'm looking in Palm Harbor, right? And I'm like, okay, that got me there. And I'm going to go to the map.
You want to put a
And it's
price
gonna be
point
a-
in?
Not yet, because I'm at a listing consultation here right now. So I'm just going to be looking at the neighborhoods that are going to be supportive of me saying, hey, this is how I know your neighborhood. So I'm going to draw this polygon shape. Oh, hang on, move it over here, and I'm going to pull the Hammocks neighborhood, Arbor Glen. No, I'm not pulling Arbor Glen. I'm pulling, oh, maybe. Do you think, I don't know, should I pull Arbor Glen or no? It's kind of different. It's a little higher end. Definitely not going to be pulling wherever like Kingfisher in their neighborhood over there, because that's going to be way outside the bracket. So I'm going to go down and pull our this neighborhood here, which includes Wexford, Lees, and the Hammocks, and this kind of neighborhood right through here. All right. So here's their neighborhood. Oh my gosh. Nothing is for sale. Okay. What's the month supply of inventory? There's 4. We got 17 that have sold in the last 6 months. Nothing is for sale. You know, it's so funny. I took a listing in the Hammocks neighborhood, I don't know, 2 years ago, and there was like tons of data. There's nothing for sale in there right now. That's an indicator. So, I mean, if we just look at it, 17 sold in the last 6 months divided by 6, 2.8 are selling every month. There's 4 on the market. They're all pending. It's, you know, a 1 week supply of inventory. Let's look at how long it took these to sell. Oh, this one took 43 days to go under contract. 22 days, 3 days, 3 days. You can kind of see the trend. This 43 days to go under contract. If I'm sitting at a house, I'm going to be like, what happened? Open door. There you go. History.
Yeah, I'm seeing that all the time with Open Door. Their properties sit on the market for a while and they don't get sold. And I'm not 100% sure why that is. But my first guess is that they're just hard to deal with and get any kind of response. So
all the more reason. Like I would be like, see, seller, you want to sell the Open Door? 43 days. Like, do they really know what they're doing? They also, yeah, and who knows why? And yet they're finally under contract. It took them 43 days. And so, I mean, this is how we use that data to then narrow down to say, okay, I understand your market. That may not have added any clarity to anybody on this call. And yet, what are your thoughts? What are your ahas? What have you heard this last hour and a half that stood out to you? What's going to get you coming back to Gary's Mastermind every month?
Well, that's a great point that you just brought up, how you're using this data at the listing appointment and just searching the MLS and showing them right there. I mean, numbers don't lie. And so if you have the confidence to explain it in a way that makes sense and you're at the table there, and you can just show them clearly and they can understand it, and you have the time and their, you know, attention, then, you know, that's an amazing tool. I've never done that.
Indeed.
Never thought about it.
I think that we are professionals and we are actually displaying our skill or our ability right there by bringing up the facts and not just speculating with everyone else.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Marlene. It's that selling and telling versus, you know, showing and owning. You know, and what I love about it is I love it when I pull it up and I have an aha with them at the table, like, huh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Like my clients are looking at me like, is your mind is blown right now? My mind's blown right now, and your mind's blown. I'm like, yeah, well, that's a true professional is always going to be learning. And like, I'm a student of the market. Like I'm never going to be the first person to say I know everything. Like, that's not how I roll. And like, I love it when it comes to that. I use this data. My best example is I took a for sale by owner back in 2015. They were for sale by owner at 800,000. I had never listed an $800,000 house before in my life. It was for sale by owner. So I went in there and I basically did the absorption rate for their price class category at 800,000. And then I did it for 700,000, and 800,000 at the time was an 11-month supply of inventory back in 2015. And I found out that they needed to sell this because they had a house for sale in Costa Rica that was under contract, and they had to close on it in 3 months. And so I said, hey, so you're in a price class category right now, is for sale by owner. First of all, you're only getting about 10% of the market exposure. And second of all, you are in a price class that sells in 11 months. So what does selling in 11 months mean for you and moving to Costa Rica? And they were like, that's probably not going to happen. I said, yeah.
Urgency and cost of waiting.
Yeah. And they had agent after agent after agent who came through their house previewing for a buyer that they had. And I was like, look, I want your listing. And here's why I should earn it, is because I know these numbers. And if you price at 700,000, it might be a 9-month supply of inventory, but you will be the best looking house at 700,000. And sure enough, we went under contract in 30 days and we sold 30 days later. Back when houses used to sit on the market for 30 days, I know that's like a unicorn, right? 30 days on the market. What's wrong with that? $800,000. And yet that's what it took. And that was the highest, like, we sold it for, like, I think it was $695,000 or something like that for sale by owner. And I had never taken a listing at that price. And they're like, why should we hire you? And I said, first of all, I know the numbers of your neighborhood. Second of all, I'm a prospector. I dig through the dirt looking for gold every day. And third, I work for a company that's profit sharing. We all work together to sell houses. It's not like the other companies where they close and lock the door and shut the blinds so no one can see what they're doing. We're collaborators. My company profit shares. When we exceed and grow and are successful, everyone around us is growing and successful. And they're like, that's the kind of person we want to be in business with. And so they hired us. And so that's what Gary's Mastermind has done for me. And I mean, that's why it's invaluable. This hour and a half every month, like, I can't miss it. I won't miss it. So parting words, Tamara, do we know when next month's going to be yet?
Not yet. We do not.
Not yet. All right. Stay tuned, y'all. It's coming next month. We're doing it every month. Yep. So thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time today. It was great. I learned a lot. And so thank you for that. And,
Thank you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I appreciate you guys.
I learned a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you bet.
Jake.
I love it. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks all for
Hey, guys.
Louis.
Good job.
Yep. Appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for participating. And
Thank you,
Karen.
Jake.
Yeah, my pleasure. Y'all have a good day. All right.